All right, everybody, welcome back. So let's do some more problems from section 6.6. And as I suggest here up on the top, the best thing you can do is really keep writing words on the right-hand side of your notes on what did you do for this problem, especially what was different in this problem that you didn't do in another problem. These really do help so much from experience from using these notes for years and years in the past. All right, let's keep going. Here's example number 3. And I've got some examples, some hints and tricks over here on the right-hand side for you too. All right, number 3. We want to find where does the cosine of theta equal negative root 3 over 2? Well, like I gave in the last video, the only thing that's really different now is that this is going to be in radians, but the steps are pretty much exactly the same. So this would be a good chance just to pause and try it on your own. Pause the video and just come back when you want to check the answers. All right, here's how I would try number 3. So, like I said before, let's take the inverse first of all. So on the left-hand side, I get theta. On the right-hand side, I get the cos inverse of negative root 3 over 2. I think about the inverse cosine lives in quadrants 1 and 2. So if it's negative, then it must be in quadrant 2. So I'll look at my unit circle, and where is the cosine, the x value, equal to negative root 3 over 2? And my first answer would be 5 pi over 6, which is the same thing as 150 degrees. But we're in radians now, so we use 5 pi over 6. All right, so now let's get rid of the cosine inverse and just think about where else is the cosine equal to negative root 3 over 2. And think about what other quadrant is cosine negative. It was in quadrant 2 as the first one, but where else? Did you think quadrant 3? Me too. So try to think where else in quadrant 3 is cosine equal to negative root 3 over 2. And my second answer would be about 210 degrees or 7 pi over 6. So final answers, 5 pi over 6 from the inverse, 7 pi over 6 once I drop the inverse and just look at the unit circle, where else is the cosine equal to negative root 3 over 2? And that's question number 3. Question number 4. Go ahead and read the hints on the right-hand side. To start you out, we do want to take the inverse again, but the problem is we don't know the inverse of CSC. So can you use the second hint here to try to think about, instead of using CSC or cosecant, what can we transform that into to help us out? All right, take a pause the video, try this on your own, and come back with the answer. All right, welcome back. So here's what I would do. Instead of saying that the cosecant of theta equals 2, I would change cosecant to its friend, which is sine. So if I flip the left side, I have to flip the right side. If the cosecant is 2, then the sine would be 1 over 2. Oh, that's not too bad. Now we can solve this one pretty well, just like we did in questions 1 and 2. So I'll take the inverse. When I take the inverse on both sides, I think where is sine inverse of 1/2, unit circle, and I get pi over 6, or 30 degrees. And then drop the inverse and just think where else, what other quadrant is sine a positive number? And that's going to be in the second quadrant. Look and see on the unit circle, where is the sine, or the y value, equal to 1 over 2? And I get 150, or 5 pi over 6. Final answers, 30 degrees and 150 degrees. But of course, we're in radians. And there you go. So the big trick on this one was here, changing it so that it looked like one of our regular sine, coses, or tans. Because we really can't take the inverse of cosecant, so change it into a way that you can do it. Moving on to number 5. Number 5 gets a little bit tricky now. We're back into degrees, as you see in the instructions, but now we can use calculator. And the way you can tell we can use calculator is look at these decimals. It definitely doesn't look like something from the unit circle, so I can use calculator. So get that ready, get that into degree mode, and let's give it a try. Well, like I see in my steps here on the right-hand side, let's just jump right ahead into the inverse right away. Let's get the first angle. So theta equals the cos inverse of 0.42. When I plug that into the calculator right away, he gives me an answer of 65.2 degrees. Make sure you're in degree mode. Good, got my first answer, check. But again, like we thought about before, drop the inverse and let's think about where else is my cosine equal to 0.42. That's a positive number. So we got to think about our quadrants again, friends. So we already got 65.2, which is right here in the first quadrant. Well, where else is cosine positive? If you think about it, it's going to be down here in quadrant 4. So now what we have to do is we have to figure it out. Again, he's not a normal angle on a unit circle, so let's just draw a random angle here. But if this is 65.2 from the first answer right here, then this is going to have the same reference angle down here too. That's also going to be 65.2. But you can't write the answer of 65.2 again because we already have that answer once. You have to think about, again, starting from 0, going counterclockwise, what is that new answer that I want? And that is going to be a full circle minus your reference angle of 65.2. So my first answer was 65.2. My second answer is 360 minus that, which is 294.8 degrees. So we drew the same reference angle of 65.2. We drew that in the fourth quadrant. And then thinking about from 0 degrees, from due east to get to that angle, how'd you get there? And we did 360 minus that. Final answers. How about 65.2 was the first angle and 294.8. Again, this is algebra in a way, so you can just plug these answers back into your original question just to check it out. All right. I'm going to pause for a second. Why don't you try number 6 and number 7 on your own, since it's very, very similar to what we just did on number 5, combined with what we just did in question number 4. Pause the video, and when you're ready to check, move on. All right, here's question number 6, folks. So we're trying to find out what is the cotangent of theta equal to negative 0.3. We're in degree mode, and definitely need a calculator, and you look at those decimals. Okay, so my suggestions again, just like we did in question number 4, I can't take the inverse of a cotan. We just don't know how to do that. So why don't we change it to one of the friends that we do know? If the cotan is negative 0.3 over 1, then let's flip it. Then the tangent of theta is 1 over negative 0.3. And you know what? I don't know what that number is, 1 over negative 0.3, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to plug that into the calculator in about 5 seconds. And here we go. Let's take the inverse. So theta equals the tan inverse in our calculator of 1 over negative 0.3. And when I punch that in, now before I even punch that in, I'm just going to think tan inverse. We said tan inverse lives in quadrants 1 and 4, right? And this is a negative 1 over 0.3, so that's a negative number. So I know my answer should live somewhere over here in quadrant 4. Okay, now I'll put in the calculator and just double check if that works. Okay, the tan inverse of that number gives me negative 73.3 degrees. And sure enough, that is in quadrant 4. Yay, I found it. But remember the problem that we had before with question number 2. Remember that I can't have any answers that are negative now. We did in section 6.5. That was okay. But folks, in section 6.6, the instructions say only positive angles out. So we got to think about is the coterminal of that. What is another way of writing negative 73.3 degrees? Best way to do it is just coterminal. Let's just add 360 degrees to that. And I get, really, my first answer, folks, is 286.7 degrees. That's really my first answer. Negative 73.3 is good, but because the instructions say no negatives, please, we have to write it as a coterminal positive angle. There's my first one. Okay, now I need to find where the other angle is going to live. I go back over here to my axis. I got my first quadrant, but where else is tangent a negative number? Not first, not third, but over here in the second quadrant. So let's just do what we did in question number 5. Let's draw that reference angle. It's the same reference angle we found, right? The reference angle you found down here was 73.3. That's the answer you found. It was negative, that's why it went clockwise. but 73.3. So I'll put the same angle right here, folks, the same reference angle, 73.3. Okay, that's our other answer. But again, we can't write 73.3. We already have that sort of as one of our answers. So you think from 0 degrees to that second answer, how much is that? And how much is that angle going to be? And that's actually going to be 180 minus 73.3. So for my second answer, it's really going to be 106.7 degrees. Final answers. Where is the cotangent of theta equal to negative 0.3? I would say 286.7 degrees and 106.7 degrees. Final answer. All right, before I go on, I'm going to pause this video and start a fresh one so these videos don't get too long. So that's question 6. Feel free to try question 7 and 8 on your own first, and then you can double check it in the next video. See you soon.